Hello, my name is Beatriz Navarro Lameda and I'm a teaching fellow at University College London. And today I would like to talk to you about how to use online marking platforms to train TAs on how to give effective formative feedback. First, I want to give you some context. So we had very large first year courses with more than 400 students at the University of Toronto, sometimes even 1,000. And these courses had an emphasis on mathematical communication and proof writing, so that's something that we want to communicate to students through our marking and feedback. And our markers had many different backgrounds and levels of experience. Some of them were second or third year undergraduates, while some others were PhD students. So the traditional approach that we had to TA training on feedback before we had GradMark was the following. We had an initial training where we told TAs it is important to give feedback to students, write comments. You cannot just leave an X or a question mark. It is very important that you tell the student what went wrong and how they could improve. And we also tell them that they have to focus on the quality of the writing and not just on the mathematical validity of their arguments. Just looking for a list of equations and see that it's mathematically correct is not enough. They have to explain their reasoning very well. Then we would provide TAs with a detailed marking scheme, tell them how we want to mark things, and then hope for the best. We had no way of monitoring their work because, we had 1,000 students, problem sets were handed in tutorials. The tutorial TA would take them, mark them, return them to students, so it was logistically impossible to see how things were going. But we had several concerns. Is marking consistent? Is feedback actually helpful? And do marks and feedback align with the course writing goals? Well, this was very difficult to check. That's before GradMark. But then when we started using GradMark, it became very easy to oversee the marking process. And this is because GradMark is a collaborative marking platform that allows markers to work in parallel. And that means that a lecturer can oversee the TA's marking in real time. And once we started using this, we realized many things. Marking is often very inconsistent. Even when the same TA is marking one question for all the students, that person could show inconsistencies throughout the range of students. Marking didn't align well with course writing goals, and this is already been talked about in the science education literature, specifically in physics, where Henderson et al. Had several publications talking about how there is a challenge of sending a consistent message to the students, where we tell them that we value the quality of their explanations, but then the marking is not reflecting that, and TAs just go and check the validity of the math line by line without looking at a bigger picture and the quality of the explanations. And also how different markers put a different emphasis on the burden of proof on the student or is on the instructor. So many TAs fill in the blanks and project their knowledge onto the student's work, which they should not do because we want to just grade what the students actually wrote. And we also discover that many comments were not helpful. So here I have an example of what different markers did after some initial traditional training. We asked several TAs to mark the exact same solution, and here we see some examples of not helpful feedback. So comments like nope. There is a more efficient way to check linear dependence, but this comment is not helpful for many reasons. Telling that there is a more efficient way would tell the student, what you did is okay, but you could do it more efficiently, but this is not the case. The explanation is not correct, even though the final answer is. And then in this other feedback on the right, it says better to show with a matrix. If a student sees that, they will be very confused. Where is the matrix coming from here? We know that they're referring to first build a system of equations and then go to matrices, but the student doesn't know that, and this will be extremely confusing. So here we are not giving students an idea of their explanation is wrong and how to fix it, which is a problem. And then I want to give you an example of one that is helpful. Here the marker has an arrow pointing out that the student throughout the proof swap the roles of the U's and the V's, and then says yes, but why? Try to find a linear combination, and then when you can't, you're done. So this is giving them a hint of try to do something, and if you cannot do it, then your proof will be complete. And there is just giving them like the steps of what they should try, but without telling them exactly what to do, which is very helpful. And I really like the last comment that said, this is not a proof. Try to turn correspond to into mathematical equations. So it's telling the students, this thing that you said here is not a proof, and it's reflected on the mark, because if you see they got 1 out of 10, so that means that the TA is saying, okay, what you wrote is not a proof, so you don't receive much credit for your work. Remember, these two different sets of comments came after some initial training, so that tells us that the traditional approach to TA training is insufficient when it comes to provided feedback on students' writing, because it works for some people, it doesn't work for others, so it's very inconsistent. So we had to come up with a solution, a way of improving the quality of the feedback we give, and then we came up with this idea of marking supervision as continuous training. So in 2016, Alfonso Gracias and I started working on providing TAs feedback on their work. And what we did was the following. We first had an initial training on feedback and on how to use GradMark. And after that, for every problem set, TAs were provided with a detailed marking scheme. And later on, for some courses, we did benchmarking sessions. And we asked TAs to mark 20 papers and wait until they get our feedback. And we would give them very detailed feedback on their feedback. And if the marking was good, they could continue. If not, they had to fix the issues and do another round of, let's say, 20, maybe 10. And after that, we would perform some random checks to ensure consistency. So the idea here is that we look at that batch of first 20 and we see the quality of the comments, if the TAs was focusing on the right aspects of the question and the writing and different important bits that they had to look for. And if not, we would give them feedback and help them come up with those comments. And the key points here are that we need to provide constant support during the marking process. We would make sure that TAs felt that they could ask us if they had any questions. And we want to also make sure that the TAs feel that we are a team. So we're not just telling them what to do or what they're doing is wrong. So we always want to take the input from TAs and adjust the marking guidelines as we go, because they might realize that what we originally thought was the best approach to mark this assessment was not actually correct, and we will adjust things accordingly. And we also need to work with markers to create a shared comment library. And later, in the 29th of June, I will give a talk on how to use GradMark, and there I will go in details of how to use the comment library in GradMark. But this is very helpful because when you have a group of 3 or 4 TAs marking one question, one TA can come up with a brilliant comment that you can then share with everyone in the team, so everyone can use that same comment, which makes everyone's life easier. So what I do is when someone comes up with a very good comment, I acknowledge it, share it with everyone, and then everyone can use it. So of course there's some challenges and benefits. So potential challenges are that it's very time consuming for the instructor. You have to go over the 20 answers that each TA marked, and sometimes we have a team of 20 or 10 TAs. So it could take maybe 1 hour per TA for each problem set, sometimes more if the questions are difficult or there are many issues with the marking. And some TAs might not like feeling that they're being watched. But I think this is far outweighed all the benefits. So we improve consistency because we now work as a team and we make sure that everyone is on the same page. The quality of the feedback improves because everyone is making a conscious decision of what to tell the students and how to help them improve. Comments and marks now align better with the course goal for the same reason. It also prevents you from having TAs overworking. When you ask TAs to do a very good job at giving feedback, one of the biggest risks is that they will spend too much time on that. And it will take time from other responsibilities that they have as students. So here, because GradMark allows you to keep track of the time each marker is spending, we can then make sure that if some question is taking too long to mark, we can bring someone to help, or we can adjust the marking criteria to make the marking a bit faster, to make sure that everyone spends a reasonable amount of time working. And it also creates better and more confident markers, because throughout this process, what we do is we constantly provide feedback to the TAs, and we're constantly helping them. Eventually, towards the end of the semester, most TAs are very good at realizing what constitutes formative feedback, and they write very, very good comments. And so far, my experience is that most TAs really appreciate this, because they know that when they feel stuck, they're not sure, they can always ask for help. Thank you very much, and I will answer your questions during the live session.